Hello, everyone. We're just going to get started in a couple of seconds there, just waiting for everyone to join, and we'll see you in a couple of seconds. Thanks a million. Hello, everyone, and you're very welcome to this webinar on Let's Talk Anxiety in partnership with Mental Health Ireland. My name is Cillian, and I am the Peer Education Training and Development Officer with Midwest ARIES, and I'm joined by some of the team here at Midwest ARIES, which I'll get them to introduce themselves in a second. Also joined by Noeleen Wills from Mental Health Ireland as well, and I'll get her to introduce herself in a second as well. So just want to say a big thank you to Mental Health Ireland for the ongoing partnership throughout the webinars. We've been running them for a good few months now at the end of every month, so it's great to have that partnership and the different topics that we've covered over the last number of months as well. So the aim of this webinar on Let's Talk Anxiety is to explore anxiety, particularly during times of uncertainty. We will discuss, does anxiety serve a purpose, and what tools we have in our own lives to combat stress and anxiety when it does arise as well. So I'm sure we all have our own practical coping mechanisms and well-being strategies that we use day to day. So hopefully we can delve into this throughout the conversation, and we'll be guided by you, the attendees, who will be, I suppose, answering or putting questions in the Q&A section in a while, and we'll be guided by those questions throughout as well. So before I begin, just a little bit about Midwest ARIES. If you're tuning in to these webinars for the first time, the ARIES in Midwest ARIES stands for Advancing Recovery in Ireland Education Service, and we specialise in recovery education and wellbeing and mental health. And we cover the Midwest region in Clare, Limerick and North Tipperary. We currently run workshops online, and we're slowly transitioning back to face-to-face workshops over the next couple of months as well. So just a bit on housekeeping for this webinar. It'll be 1 hour in duration. It'll be a panel discussion, and like I mentioned just a few seconds ago, we'll be guided by the questions that come in the Q&A section, and this can be found at the bottom of your screen as well. So you'll see a Q&A button if you want to even preload some questions in there, and just we'll get to them throughout the webinar as well. So that's the Q&A section. This will also be recorded and will be uploaded on our YouTube channel, Midwest ARIES, and we also convert it into a podcast, which can be found on Anchor FM and all good platforms as well that host podcasts like Spotify and so many others as well. We will finish, like we always do, with a guided meditation, and this one is about managing anxious thoughts. So it's a really nice one just to finish off the webinars. So I think I've covered everything there with the housekeeping and who we are and what we do and the structure of today's webinar. So I'm just going to invite my colleagues and Noeleen as well from Mental Health Ireland to turn on their cameras and unmute themselves as well, and we'll get each of them to introduce themselves in a second. So hello, everyone. How are you doing? Can you hear me all okay? Yeah, perfect.
Yep.
So Mike, I might go to you first. If you want to say hello and introduce yourself. Thanks a million. Just get the panelists to mute themselves while people are talking as well. That'd be great. Thanks a million.
Perfect. Good stuff, Cillian. My name is Mike O'Neill. I'm manager with Midwest ARIES, and yeah, glad to be here. We're based in the Midwest, but as I said, with the benefit of something like this is you can go national and even international. So yeah, nice to be here. Looking forward to the conversation. Thanks, Cillian.
Great stuff, Mike. Thanks a million. You're a regular on these webinars now. I think you haven't missed one yet, so it's great to have you here again. So thanks a million. Noeleen, we might come to yourself if that's okay.
Sure. Hello, everybody, and thank you for the invite to come on and be part of the panel today. My name is Noeleen Wills, and I'm a development officer with Mental Health Ireland. I cover South Dublin and East Wicklow. As Cillian mentioned, because the partnership, I suppose you guys have good access to various different DOs around the country, so thank you for the invite. Part of the DO role, I suppose, is really about promoting mental health and recovery. We do that through training and involvement with initiatives throughout Ireland, but specifically with the DOs throughout our counties. I'm also a psychotherapist and a RAP facilitator as well.
I'm on mute, sorry, Noeleen. Yeah, that's great, Noeleen. Great to have you here, and thanks for representing Mental Health Ireland, and great to have your knowledge today on the webinar as well. So thanks a million. Noelle, we might come to you if that's okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Cillian. Yeah, hi, my name is Noelle and I'm a recovery education facilitator here at Midwest ARIES also. And excuse me. Yeah, looking forward to the discussion around that. We run a workshop on anxiety, and you know, I think we had the discussion beforehand. Anxiety seems to be very heightened even at the moment. So I think it's great to have a good webinar on it and a good discussion around it. Yeah, so looking forward to it. Thanks, Cillian.
Brilliant. Thanks, Noelle, and great to have you here again. Mags, might come to yourself next. That's okay. Thanks, and just for an introduction.
Yeah, thanks, Cillian. I'm also a recovery education facilitator with Midwest ARIES, and I'm just up over the Limerick border in the Cork, in the Rebel County. So yeah, I'm looking forward to today's discussion. It's always good to get tips and to share. So yeah, looking forward to this, Cillian. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Mags. And hopefully we'll have lots of our own individual tools and tips that people can take away from today's webinar as well. So that's great. And lastly, Eileen, I might come to yourself. Thanks a lot.
Hi, Cillian. Hi, everybody. My name is Eileen and I'm a recovery education facilitator also at Midwest ARIES. And I have to say, anxiety is definitely a topic close to my heart. So I really look forward to discussion with everyone today, and hopefully all our participants and everyone watching will get some tips and tools. So thanks, Cillian.
Brilliant. Thanks a million, Eileen. Great to have you on board again for the webinar. Thanks a lot. So I suppose we'll delve into the first question, if that's okay. And the first question is, what does anxiety mean for you in your own life? What is it and what does it feel like? So Eileen, I might go to you first, if that's okay. You might want to unmute there. Thanks a million.
Thanks a million, Cillian. Yeah, I think for me, actually, it really starts with kind of black and white thinking, you know, kind of worst case scenario thinking. That's definitely where my own anxiety would manifest. Just thinking the worst, and then it goes really physical. So then the sweaty palms, I can feel my heart going. Even sometimes even the mentioning anxiety, it can really trigger like a really physical response. So yeah, there's a real, I suppose, mental component for me, and then it really manifests itself physically. You know, even the shaking leg. I really find that they're so in tune, actually. What I'm telling myself actually affects my body. So that's definitely what it means for me, Cillian. And even the mention of it now, the pants start to get sweaty. So it's a real visceral, I think, response I have to anxiety.
Brilliant, Eileen. Thanks for sharing that. It's really, really relevant. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that as well. Has anyone any thoughts on that? Noeleen, you might come to yourself on even what Eileen had mentioned, or is that something similar, or have you your own experiences as well of what it means? Yeah.
Oh, wholeheartedly. I mean, the reason why I chose to get into the line of work I'm in is because of my own experiences. And Eileen, I'm sitting here going, absolutely. My hands are clammy. I've been chilly all morning because I knew that the webinar was coming up. So anxiety for me is a bit like what Eileen was saying. Yeah, I've got the head piece in terms of that my thoughts would be like that they would race, and they'd be quite irrational. And usually then I would doubt myself. So I almost have to, I suppose, keep that in check, because I'm very aware that it's just a level of anxiety in a way. And then the physicals, and I suppose over the years, some of the general physicals for me would be like that the body temperature would drop, so I'd get really cold, but yeah, I'd have the clammy hands, the knots in the stomach, loss of appetite. And then at times there have been some real, I suppose, extreme symptoms of anxiety that I would have experienced. Thankfully, not so much now. The more that I learn about it and the more that I, you know, I suppose try and manage it. But they would be the likes of, like extreme weight loss, panic attacks, hair loss, you know, stuff like that has gotten quite extreme over the years. But like I say, thankfully that hasn't happened in a number of years, because I suppose all about trying to do something at the earlier stages of being aware of it, but I can definitely identify any.
Thanks, Noeleen. It's great. Thanks for sharing as well. I think it's the learning piece around it, what you've experienced before in the past that you're able to manage now going forward as well. So thanks a million. Mike, any thoughts on that? What anxiety means to you, or what does it feel like, or what does it look like? Thanks a lot.
Yes, and I suppose there's probably like scales of it, but I suppose a lot of it is the ability to cope. And sometimes it can be just around managing, you know, the thoughts, the behavioral stuff, racing thoughts. And I suppose for myself, I'm someone who has used the services, the mental health services, for many years and would have struggled with, I suppose, when we look at what was I being treated for. So again, it would have been PTSD. You know, how is that manifesting itself as well, just in that. And then when we look at behaviors or thinking or, you know, so distressing thoughts, racing thoughts, lack of sleep, OCD then, hypervigilance, hyperarousal, you know, so again, very difficult. And sometimes it's just hard even to notice it, because again, like mainly, I suppose, if I have anxiety now, where I notice it is I can feel it in my chest. And where I feel it in my chest when I actually notice it is when I'm driving. When I stop at traffic lights, I'm holding my breath. And it's the only time that for me then is the flag. So then it's kind of, now action is required. I need to do something. You know, so I suppose, like, so for different people, you know, some people are probably more predisposed to it, you know, whereas like it comes back to the ability to cope and function, you know, whereas we often know people say, geez, how did they breeze through life, you know, and look what they're dealing with on a daily basis, you know. So it is, you know, I think, as even as Noeleen mentioned, we can learn, you know, become more self-aware, what works for us, build on that, you know, develop skills, knowledge, experience then, and trial and error is a big part of it, like, you know, because I mean, you know, if mental health was so easy, like, it's kind of like, it's like the thing of kind of, I should go for a walk in the woods and you'll feel great, you know. But if you're really struggling, you know, how many times you have to go walking in the woods before you feel or can respond to it, whereas other people, like, kind of just taking 5 minutes, few breathing exercises could clear their head. So it's a very individual thing as well, I suppose, you know. So yeah, thanks, Keane.
Thanks, Mike. Great insights there, I think. And like you said, it's a trial and error. It's individual to each of us, or where we kind of can manage or do for our anxiety that we face day to day or week to week, whatever it is. So we might touch on the well-being strategies that we all do in a couple of minutes to manage anxiety. So I might just pass it to Noelle, if she has any thoughts on.
Yeah, I suppose for me, it's similar to Mike now, it would be my chest. For me, so the question is, what does anxiety mean to you? So for me, it's my body letting me know I'm feeling stressed about something. It makes me fearful about something. I get really panicky in my chest. And when I lie down, my chest is just thumping. And it's a fear of dread and loss of control. And I can't control my heartbeat. Then it's kind of just thumping away. So it's fast and loud, and I can just hear it in my ear. And I suppose for me, it's like, it's either a build-up of nerves over maybe something that's going to happen, you know, or you're building up to something, an event or something, or else it's a build-up of maybe small or stressful situations that are going on in my life, that are ongoing over time, and a fear around them. And I have noticed as I've gotten older, I have got more fearful about maybe security things in my life. So I'm just noticing that in the last year. So yeah, I suppose I'm more, whereas I wouldn't have been as fearful about those things. I think my fears have changed as I've gotten older, if that makes sense. And I really noticed that. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Noelle, for sharing. Again, great insights again. I think that self-awareness is coming back to it again, that we kind of mentioned earlier on as well, you know. So I'll finally come to Mags. Did you see any thoughts on the question, if that's okay? And then we might move on to like well-being strategies that we do in our own life. So thanks, Mags.
Thanks, Cillian. Yeah, I suppose I'm a little bit different, where I kind of I get anxious. I was anxious about this morning, I suppose about 12 o'clock, the anxiety. I have a webinar, come on, get yourself together. I was a bit anxious, but I kind of use my anxiety to my own advantage, to give the best I can give, but it's maybe 2 or 3 hours later, my anxiety will start, which is, it's a bit odd. And if there was a few events coming up and I got through that week, it could be a week later, this fear would come over me, and I kind of have to check in with myself every morning. Why am I feeling like this? Can I do something about it? Was it something that happened? So I suppose I'm aware of that, and I try and keep that awareness there and work around that then.
That's brilliant, Mags. You have that again, it comes back to that awareness and knowing what to do in the moment, or even if it's a week later or whatever you kind of mentioned as well. So it's really good. So I might delve into it. The question is, if you start feeling anxious, what would be the first thing you would do for your own well-being? Mags, I might just go back to you, even from that situation maybe, and then we might move on to the others, if that's okay. Do you know, what would you kind of, you said you kind of check in with yourself. Is there any other kind of tools you use or tips you could give?
I do. I check in and I see, did something happen in the last few days, or is there something coming up? Is there a need for this feeling to be there? And I suppose then I kind of write things down, and kind of put an order in things into order. And I suppose then if that doesn't work and if my sleep is then affected, I kind of use meditation. And as Mike said, the walk in the woods doesn't work for everybody, but it works for me. So I use that as well. Yeah.
Brilliant. Great stuff, Mags. I'm just going to move on to Noelle there, if she wants to share. Is like, even when my screen has gone a bit, sorry, yeah, one sec.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
perfect, sorry, yeah.
I suppose for me, like I said, because I feel it in my chest, so if I don't sort my breathing out, nothing is going to work for me. So I have to work on my breath first of all. So try and take a deep breath, try to slow down that thumping feeling. And then, you know, if I can try and control that, then I can try and see, well, what can I control? What's happening to me? Is there something I can do about it now? I have to think about it, if there's something I can do about it. Or if there's someone that can help me with something, whatever I'm going through. And if they can, try and do something about it. If I can't, I have to distract myself. Just like, I suppose an example would be yesterday, I wasn't in a great place yesterday, and I was walking the roads, pounding them, you know, because that normally does work, and doing that, and just nothing would work for me yesterday. So I just gave up because I was only exhausting myself doing stuff. And then I kind of, once I let that go, actually, it actually helped better, if that made sense. So I was trying to do all the things that I do that help me, and they weren't working. And once I stopped trying and just sat through it and went through it, you know, I just realized, look, it's just feelings I'm going through today. So I just listen to my body, the language, you know, where I'm feeling it, the tense feeling. And I suppose if I'm snappy, if I'm irritable, you know, they're all signs for me, and just being, I suppose, checking in with myself and notice that. But you know, looking at what I'm trying to do, and if, you know, see if it's working, because sometimes you can keep trying, won't work, you know, so you're just exhausting yourself. So sometimes you just have to step back and just maybe sit through it. And for me yesterday, that's what I had to do. And then, you know, I felt much better today.
Brilliant, great, Noelle, that's great. Again, it comes back to knowing what works, and then you tried something, it didn't work, and then you just kind of let it be, I suppose, and just sit with it as well for a couple of moments until things would kind of pass. And these, I suppose, these feelings of anxiety do pass over time when we delve into the tools that are at our disposal as well. So that's great. Noeleen, will I come to yourself next? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. So I suppose the first thing that I do is acknowledge it. Acknowledge like that, okay, anxiety, because I know for years I had a real battle with it, but it can be so uncomfortable and really awful to try and do what it is that I need to do alongside feeling all these things. I call it the bear chasing me, because it is, my whole central nervous system can be on high alert. So I would often do things like Mel says, I'm checking in where I'm breathing from, and usually if the anxiety is quite high, I'm breathing from my chest as opposed to from my belly. So I actually try and consciously do some box breathing, which is, you know, 5 in, hold for 5. I actually just find that works really well in terms of just, the other thing that I do is I have lots of tinctures and little bits that I use. I'm not going to lean on the coffee and stuff like that, because again, that can just set off the central nervous system. So I'm really mindful of the likes of like drinking water, because like I get a dry mouth. So there's lots of just, I suppose, physical little things that I can help do to support, so that I can continue to do what it is that I want to do. And that to me is really important when it comes to anxiety. Yes, at times it can be really, really, I suppose, really severe, that it might be about pulling back. But for instance, I knew there's a bit of anxiety sitting there this morning on this webinar. I'm not going to put 3 webinars in a day, because the energy that is being burned around anxiety, and sometimes for me it's as easy as, and this might sound a bit unusual, but to go out into the back garden and just jump around, just to try and burn off some of that energy, so that it goes somewhere and it doesn't just keep floating around my body. So there's those type of practical little things that I would really lean into, that hopefully get some kind of I suppose settling down quite quickly. Otherwise, I could be just dragging around for the day, you know. So they would be some of the ones that I'd lean in on. And the acknowledgement is really important. With the thoughts, I might lean out to somebody who I trust. I'm not just going to ring somebody and start talking about, just to say, do you know what? Am I overthinking this? Is it, you know, so I get a bit of perspective from somebody that I trust.
It's really great, Noeleen. Just coming back to the box breathing, I do that myself when I do get anxious. The meditation side of things, I'm always doing it every single day of the week, and it definitely grounds me and puts me in better form, makes me calmer day to day as well. But even, I suppose, what you kind of mentioned about the perspective getting from someone else as well, just to have that chat to offload as well is really important. And I think we'll touch on that towards the end as well. There's a question on that as well. So that's great. Mike, we might come to you if that's okay.
Yeah, and I suppose I've been thinking about how can I answer this question as the conversation is going on. And I suppose I know I would agree with Noelle as well about listen to your body. So sometimes you can be feeling it. So, but then again, you could have a feeling without a thought, you know, so it's kind of, well, now for me, the challenge is to become aware. And then, you know, so it's to identify that this is anxiety, you know. And I'll give you an example. This morning, I woke up at 3:30. Couldn't go back asleep. Yesterday morning, I woke up at 4 o'clock, couldn't back asleep. And I don't know why. You know, so there's a puzzle there, you know. You know, so sometimes is that anxiety? Am I worrying about something? Have I stuff going on in my life that's annoying me? Absolutely. You know, but is it like, am I really worried about it, and is it stressful? It's just more of a nuisance and an irritation, and I just want it to go away. But I couldn't say it's anything that's causing me anxiety. So, and so it's a bit like where some people say it's the stuff that you can't see will kill you. You know. So, right now it's kind of a puzzle for me. But I think so. So part of the being aware is kind of, yeah, listen to your body. But then it's to step back from that. Well, then why is my body responding this way? What can I do about this? You know, so if I can name it and identify it, well, now I can tackle it and deal with it. But right now, as I said, I'm experiencing something and I don't know why or what it is. I can't identify it. But does that mean I can't do something to try and give myself a break? I'm going off for the weekend. You know, it's a nice long weekend. I look forward to that. Hopefully, you know, strolling around at the beach and the seaside. And, you know, so I'm looking forward to that. So that might minimize it or diffuse that. You know, like sea air. It's like you bring children to the beach. Sure, they'll conk on the way home and they'll sleep like logs for the night. So hopefully that will benefit me. You know, so even if we can't identify it, we can respond, you know, as well, and kind of look after ourselves. So I could ramble on about me for ages, so I'll leave you ask Eileen there.
Yeah, perfect. It's interesting what you mentioned about the unseen stuff. Again, that's kind of, but again, you're taking an action on it that kind of doesn't let it linger on, I suppose, Mike, like going to the beach and going to whatever you'd like to do and enjoy on a weekly basis as well. So that's really good. Eileen, I know there's questions in the chat and we'll get to them in a second. So keep loading the questions in if you want anything answered. That'd be great. And Eileen, I'll come to yourself. Thanks.
Perfect. Thanks, Cillian. And maybe a tip for Mike about waking up at that time. I was told before, if you wake up around that time of night, it's the most creative time of night. So maybe you should get out the pens or the paints and or the journal. And I suppose on that, there are things that have always helped me with my own anxiety, just tapping into that creative piece. And somebody said to me a long time ago is, you're not your thoughts. And that really helped me, because I thought I can make up a story around the thought and I can get really anxious about it and then go down that road. But that's actually just a thought. It hasn't happened yet. So that really helps me kind of to say, well, okay, this is just my thinking about it. And because I would always have a propensity, I suppose, to anxiety, that it can be a trait of mine as opposed to a state, that I kind of just check in and go, actually, no, this is probably just a behavior in the past, actually, that, and I can do something about it then. That just makes me feel better. And just, I suppose, just one other tip, Cillian, I always kind of just put my hand on my heart. And if I can actually hear my heart beating, it just brings down my thoughts. And I'm not thinking as much then. And I'm actually just more conscious of actually my heart beating. And that, I suppose, just there are two things that have really helped me through the years, but it's definitely ongoing. So thanks, Cillian.
That's great, Eileen. I like the hand on the heart as well, because it brings it back to the heart beating and the breathing and the here and the now and the present moment again. So I really like that tip. That's a great one. I might just delve into the questions. That's okay. Someone had said that really resonates, the energy that's created by anxiety and how to expel it and bring myself back to an equilibrium. Belly breathing is a huge part of my own toolbox. And I think that was kind of Noeleen, when you mentioned earlier on about the box breathing and everything else. So that's great. The question there is anxiety normal? Is it something that everyone experiences? Does it have a purpose? So that's a great question. Noelle, would you be okay answering that one?
Yeah, I suppose, you know, as you can see from listening even to everyone, there's different levels of it, you know, and depending where you're at with it. But it also can be helpful, I suppose, if we think over our lives, if we were going for a job interview or exams in school, or, you know, even like, say, like some people saying that, you know, coming on the webinar today, I suppose it's nearly a motivation to get your adrenaline going, to get you, you know, through the experience of what you're going through. But I think you need to have that sense of relief after it. And if you can get that sense of relief after it and just feel that weight lifted off you, then that's done its purpose, then the anxiety. But if it carries on and it becomes more than that, then that can lead down another path. But if you can just, I suppose, use it for what you need to get through. I remember doing my exams and I'd stay up all night studying, like, you know, I wouldn't have gone to bed, and it would be my adrenaline that would get me driving to do my exams, and then I'd be flat out that night and I'd come home, you know. But it can have a purpose, you know, as long as you get the sense of relief after whatever that event is, I think is the important bit.
Brilliant, great stuff, Noelle. And I think I'd be the same with the webinars. I think the first one I had to do, I was nervous wreck, really. I don't think I slept much the previous night, but I think over time, when you learn from the experience and be able to manage it in a positive way and use, like you said, I suppose, use it as fuel to help you get through it, and then take that downtime or that rest after as well. That really can make a positive difference. Noeleen, will I come to yourself? Will I repeat the question? Are you okay? Does anxiety have a function, or are you okay? Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I kind of want to say, unfortunately, yes. I mean, I prefer, if I had a magic wand, I think I would definitely get rid of anxious feelings and the discomfort and all of that comes with them. I think it does have a purpose, and I think if anything, you know, over like COVID, over the past 2.5 years, I think anxiety has really come front and center. I know for me, what I've noticed over the years is any time that I look to do something that might challenge me, that can really pique my anxiety. So somebody shared something with me a number of years ago, and I've held on to it because I just thought, you know what, yes. Instead of like, they say, you know, stepping out of your comfort zone, they said to me, why don't you look at it as expanding your comfort zone? I remember thinking, oh my, yes, I can do that. It doesn't feel as scary. So now I kind of use that as a visual. So when I do want to say do something different, or step into, say, I don't know, a different arena, or even facilitating workshops. I would do a lot of facilitating workshops, but when I started out on my journey, I'd stand up and my throat would close over and nothing would come out because the anxiety was so great in my body. So there was definitely something around, I suppose, getting to know it in a way that's that there's a gentleness, as much as at times I can go like, so I feel like my body's almost going against me. But so I think, you know, to answer the question, yes, I think by the nature of being human, we are absolutely going to experience anxiety in some shape or form. Some might have different relationships with it, but for me, I just think the more that we can figure out what that looks like for us as individuals, there's the empowering bit. Because I know for me, as much as I could write a book on all of that and all of that stuff that goes with it, and more than that as well. And that's really important for me to remind myself of that. Otherwise, I might just hide away under the duvet for a while, and you know. But that's hopeful in itself to be able to just keep chipping away. So I know I've got a bit of a meander around that, but again, I'm quite passionate about this area.
Brilliant, Noeleen. That's great. And I just really like the expanding your comfort zone. It's powerful stuff, because I think it's just doing it bit by bit and not overwhelm yourself in the moment as well. So I really like that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Eileen, will I come to yourself? Would that be okay?
Yeah, thanks, Cillian. I do think it has a function, but again, I suppose like Noelle touched on as well, it's just depending on where that level is and what you do after it. One thing's really helped me, I suppose, thinking of the functional anxieties, I suppose just Noeleen touched on it, like changing the language around it. So when I'm really anxious now, I tell myself I'm excited because it has the same feelings in the body. I remember from my driving test, because I failed a good few times, and the anxiety each time was getting more and more and more. So the last time I just said, can't wait for the driving test. I can't wait for it. And it really, it changed the function because I needed a bit of anxiety and that adrenaline to get something done. But I just changed the words around it. And that has really helped me with my anxiety, because before it was crippling, and, I isolated myself because of the anxiety, because, there was all that fear. Whereas now I just kind of go, no, I'm excited about this. I'm excited about the webinar. And it just changes, I suppose, that energy around it. So I suppose, Cillian, it does have a function, but I think you can work with it, and and words for me really help that working. So thanks, Cillian.
Great. That's really good, Eileen. Just changing the language or the simple words that we use day to day as well. And it just, like you said, it kind of can change that perspective in the moment and make you look excited rather than anxious or fearful about the situation. So that's great. Megs, will I come to yourself? And then Mike, I'll come to you lastly then.
Yeah, I was just thinking there, I have a workshop in the morning, which I haven't done before. So I can even feel the anxiety building up a small bit, but I know that if that anxiety isn't there, I won't give 110%. I know it's better to have it. If I didn't have it, I'd actually be more worried. That's the way I work off of it. But if that was happening all the time to me, I would talk to somebody about it, because you just can't work off that energy all the time. You can only keep going for a certain amount of time on it. But it's good to know that you have it there in the background, and I can kind of feed off of that energy, and that's the way I use it.
Great, Mags, feeding off that energy just to help us push forward as well. That's really, really valuable. Great stuff. And Mike, might come to yourself, if that's okay.
Yeah, and I suppose, again, listening to what people have been saying, I suppose for me, and again, this is me and my opinion, based on my own brain here, but I think it does have a function, and I suppose when we look at what is anxiety, it's fear-based responses, so they can have a normal fear-based response, so as everybody's highlighted, when the event is past, so it can help you to prepare. So if you were to look at it in a cycle, so now the event takes place, or you participate, or you do your exam or your test, and then it should dissipate and you return to a baseline. So I suppose where you're looking at then, where you may need to have an intervention then, is what happens if you don't? What happens if you're at an elevated state all of the time of anxiety? And so what's the unhealthy response then? It becomes control. What do we control? We control ourselves, we control our behaviors, we control our eating, we try to control others. So it's all about, when we feel something is out of control, how can we gain control? And those kind of behaviors then become dangerous, so it's like, why do people self-harm? It's like that hyper-arousal I mentioned earlier, hyper-vigilance, so these are all responses to that constant elevated position where you can be in as a result of anxiety that does not dissipate. So while yes, it's normal, but it's only normal for a purpose. When it steps outside of that, you can get into the whole, I suppose, when you look at mental illness then, so there's a difference between mental health challenges and the mental illness, where now action is required and you may need interventions. Yep.
Great stuff, Mike. And that's, like you said, having that control, that we can control a lot in our lives, like what we do day to day, or exercise, or our own individual well-being strategies, and it's trying to find again what works in the moment that can manage those anxious thoughts. So great stuff, Mike. I might just
add something there as well.
Course,
I was just thinking along what Mike was saying. I suppose it is our inbuilt fight and flight mode as well, that are, if we didn't have that, we wouldn't know how to be aware of danger around us, or in a different dangerous situation, and then how we're going to respond to that. So I suppose it gives us that instinct around danger and our responses.
Perfect, great stuff, Noelle. Thanks for that. Just a question in the Q&A, and it's one of your facilitators went through a worry tree in one of the anxiety workshops. Could you share more?
Well,
Eileen,
I take it.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike.
Yeah,
Work away. Yeah, go on, yeah.
And again, I suppose for anyone there that hasn't heard of it, Google the worry tree. And the worry tree is quite simple. All it starts, it's like a flow chart, except it's done in the shape of a tree. And it's a very useful tool to check in. And because what happens when we're worried about something and we're stressed about something, and when we don't have the answer, we'll torment ourselves. And we'll keep going and going and going and going and looking for the answer. And that then drains us of our energy, drains us of our resources. Then we're wore out. Then we're biting the head off other people. We can't go to work. We can't do anything we enjoy. We're just wearing ourselves out. So it's a brilliant stop check exercise. So the simple version of it is, what are you worrying about? Identify it. And so look at it as a flow chart going in two directions. So you look, so we go one direction where, right, this is what I'm worried about. So what actions can I take to alleviate the worry? Can't do a thing. The next step on the flow chart is, why are you worrying? What's the point? Stop. This isn't helpful. And it's a very simple way of looking at it. So if you can't do anything, park it. So I could say right now, what I'm worried about, Putin's going to drop a nuclear bomb on my head, because I felt this anxiety back in the 80s, the Cold War. I knew what that felt like, and I hated that oppressive feeling, impending doom. And that's there now. So in simple terms, I could get into, I'll build a bunker, I'll do this, I'll do that. But in reality, there's nothing I can do about it. So stop worrying about it. And that's kind of where we're in control. No one is in control of our thoughts. So I could say right now, Cillian, I'm going to take control of your mind. So now, can you feel me taking control? Am I in charge now? And the answer is no. So, because the reality is, no one can control our thoughts, only ourselves. So if we look at the worry tree again, treat it as a flow chart. So here's the issue I'm worrying about. So so the next step is there an action? Is there something I can do? And if the answer then is yes, then come up with the plan, create the plan, and the next step then is implement it. And then so the result then, the worry should stop. So even before you get to the end point, because you built the plan, now it's time to stop worrying. So either way, you're giving yourself a break and you're not wearing yourself out. And that's kind of a simple version of the worry tree. But as I say, for people to look it up if you don't have it. Cillian, you might even pop a copy of the worry tree into the follow-up pack. The learner pack when it's going out on Friday as well. Yeah,
absolutely. I'll send that. So people who have registered or attending today, they'll get that in the learner pack in an email. So yeah, it'll be a good, valuable one to have and use going forward as well.
It's a great tool. It just helps plan the mind, because like, as I say, we devour time and energy with stuff we have no control over. So but yet we all do it. Yeah.
Perfect, Mike. Thanks a million. There's just another question in there, and it says, when do you know that you need intervention? So I know, Mike, you kind of touched on that a little bit. Do you want to come in, or does anyone else want to come in first before Mike?
I'll just even come in on that. But sometimes you can't see it for yourself. And so sometimes it's to have other people who know you. I think Noeleen touched on this. It's pointless talking to somebody. Like, that was talking to the man on the bus or someone standing at the bus stop. Talk to somebody who knows you and understands you. Because again, it comes back to that awareness. Because sometimes I'm going down the rabbit hole. I haven't a clue. I'm in a downward spiral, with my mental health, and I haven't a clue it's happening. So for me, the intervention is somebody sees it for me and can point that out. You're not right here. You need to take action. And thankfully, I have people like that. So again, that would be my answer there. So now I'll leave somebody else.
Perfect. And Eileen, do you want to come in there maybe? Yeah, that'd be great.
I think, Cillian, just for me, I think it's when the things I normally enjoy, I'm really anxious about. That's when I know I probably need some additional support, maybe check in with, because sometimes let's say meeting a friend for lunch, or you'll be looking for something, but if I know I'm really anxious about that, or I'm just don't want to engage, I'm starting to isolate myself, and I'm almost blaming the anxiety, that's where I realize, okay, actually I need to probably talk to my counsellor, you know, who would know me, and probably just need a bit of a check-in. Because I think, as Mike said, it's hard to know. And I think for me as well, you know, you don't always want to be leaning on your friends, I think. And, you know, that was a big part of it, you know, if you are struggling with something. So sometimes it's really good just to have a check-in with whether it's your GP or a counsellor, or depending, sometimes just for me, it's a professional that maybe I have a relationship with, that I suppose can just maybe reframe things, because sometimes it's simple as, you know, maybe a simple blood test, maybe things aren't quite right, you know, physically, you know. I've noticed that I was low on vitamin D and B12s and, you know, things like that. So sometimes I just to say to the person who asked the question, maybe just check in with your GP first. And then there's other avenues, because sometimes the anxiety can be something physical, sometimes it can be emotional, and there's things you can do about each. And there's so much help out there, whether it's talking to people, and sometimes it's holistic support. Sometimes we just need, you know, a little treat, a bit of self-care, you know. Sometimes it's just making time maybe for a bit of massage or reflexology, but you know, we need all those bits. So I think, Cillian, but just check in with someone first and get a bit of advice. Thanks, Cillian.
That's brilliant. Eileen, great tips there again, because I think you kind of mentioned finding like a GP, a counsellor or something like that, or just someone to reframe your thinking in the situation as well. And that's really important. And there's lots of supports out there that people can delve into as well. Does anyone else want to come in on that question maybe? On yeah, Noeleen, yeah, and Noelle, will come to you after. Noelle, thanks.
Something I'm just thinking about there in relation to that question is, I think what I found really useful was to determine some kind of a baseline for where I am in terms of my mental health and wellness. And that is it's a touchstone in a way, so that I kind of can check in terms of how I'm doing. Otherwise, it can be a little bit too out there. You know, I find that really helpful. And so what I've also found helpful is the longer I stay away from that touch line or that baseline. So if say I get into a position like the last time I would have struggled with some pretty bad anxiety, and I needed to reach out for additional support, was when COVID kicked in, because things changed so quickly. And so I was away from my baseline, but actually caught up in my head a lot. But then started to experience quite obvious signs of physical distress, like hair loss, extreme weight loss, because I didn't even realize my appetite was gone. So what I found is to be able to, I suppose, identify what that baseline is, and then also how far away from it am I. And I found actually by using RAP, actually in the different parts of RAP, to be really helpful to be able to navigate through what that looks like. I think then in terms of getting intervention or getting support, and what that looks like then will depend on where I am or how far away from that I am. Even the type of support that I might seek might be different as well. So I think it's what I found, like, I suppose, having that baseline as such, to be really, really helpful, just to get a sense as to what is every day for me. You know, what is every day then, with a bit of spike around doing like a webinar or stepping up and doing some public speaking or whatever that looks like. And equally, as Noelle mentioned, the coming down, actually the coming back to that baseline, as opposed to perhaps the going out doing X, Y, Z, COVID, and before I know it, I'm so far away from the baseline, you know, I can barely see it. So I think I find it really helpful to be able to determine some of that for myself. So I don't know if that's any use.
That's brilliant, Noeleen. I really like the baseline, and just finding out where that is on a particular day or week as well. That's going to be really valuable to people listening as well. So and having the knowledge around it, it's great. So Noelle, I know you wanted to come in there as well, so will I pass it over to you?
Yeah, so I'm just checking. It's when do you know when you need intervention? When do you know when to check? So I think it's just making sure you check in with yourself every day. So if you're waking up and you're still feeling exhausted, you have lack of energy, you know, you're not finding joy. For me, is if I'm losing joy in the things that I always find joy, the simple little things. And the other side would be the mood. Your mood will change, you know. You might not want to talk to anyone, or you might be irritable or frustrated, and I think just checking, so being aware of how your body is, you know, if you're starting to feel tired all the time, you know, whether you might have had 9 hours sleep but still wake up exhausted. You know, your mood with that, how your mood is, and you're not finding joy and just not having the energy to do the things that you would normally do. And I think they're light bulbs for me, you know. And then write down then what you're feeling, you know, how you feel. I'm feeling tired, I'm feeling exhausted, I've just had 9 hours sleep, I'm still tired. They're check-ins, and if you see them written by yourself, then you'll see these are, all right, there's something going on here. Can I figure out what it is? And then, you know, get the intervention, then get the help that you feel you need. You'll know then if it's your GP, or maybe you might just need someone who has a peer support person who has gone through anxiety, who will get it, or a group, you know, support group. But check in with yourself to see what it is, so you can identify and then know, you know, or maybe you can just feel these things, but you might not still been able to identify it. Then go check in then with your GP or someone.
Brilliant, Noelle. Thanks a million. And I think it's like documenting how we're feeling, our emotions day to day, and journaling, having these prompts, asking ourselves how we're feeling or whatever it may be, and just having that as an ongoing process. And then we can bring that to a support person or a GP as well that can help the situation.
And even, sorry, just to say, I meant to say, and ask yourself, have those questions written in, like, am I safe? You know, am I feeling okay now? Is there anything I can do now? You know, have those questions written down for yourself that you can answer, because it has to come from you.
Definitely,
And
absolutely.
I think just on that as well, I think just for people to be mindful as well that, you know, sometimes while we're trying to listen to our body, we can't hear or we can't respond. We're feeling stuff. So we may need to go to a GP, because it reminds me one time, I remember here in work, I was having these vicious chest pains for an ongoing period of time. And I told my colleague, I said, look, if I hit the floor and I go out, it's a heart attack. It's definitely a heart attack. Phone line, get the ambulance, you know. And so I went to the doctor anyway, and I got an appointment with the Galway clinic. The long and the short of it was, they done a full scan and says, clean as a whistle, everything is fine, you're not going to die of a heart attack, you know. So then I had to kind of, now I need to revise my plan. So sometimes it's getting all of get the facts as well, you know. So don't just assume everything is anxiety or something else, you know. So it's a bit of everything. So again, it's when you can't see it, you need to explore. That's all. So, thanks, Cillian. Yeah.
Great stuff, Mike. Really valuable as well. So I know we're kind of coming, we have another couple of minutes before we finish, but I know I want to get into meditation as well. Would this be a good time to do the meditation? Would everyone be okay with that? Yeah.
Yep.
I'm just going to share it there. So let me know if you can hear it. So this one is very suitable for today's webinar. It's the title of the meditation is Managing Anxious Thoughts. So give me 2 seconds there now. And just give me a thumbs up if you can see it and you can hear it in a second. Yeah, you can see it, yeah. And I'm just going to start playing. So if you want to try this meditation, close your eyes and just settle into it it's about 3 minutes long anyway, and I'll just play it there. Thanks a million. Welcome to this meditation to relieve any anxious thoughts that you may be experiencing. Make sure you're in a comfortable position and bring your focus to your breath, and really pay attention to how your lungs expand and contract when you inhale and exhale. Let your breath flow however it wants to be right now, and notice your jaw and if you feel any tension here. Just notice it and don't try to change anything. Inhale again, imagine that you're breathing in new life. And when you exhale, let all the fear and anxiety completely fade. Take another breath in, and when you exhale, feel yourself letting go of any worries. And notice how relaxed you are becoming right now. Let another breath come in naturally, imagining a bright future. And as you let it go, notice how your anxious thoughts or feelings fades away.
wave of relaxation sweeps over you as you breathe in and out. And allow yourself to become calm and peaceful in the moment. Notice how new ideas begin to present themselves to you, and imagine that you are more energized. See yourself full of energy and optimism, and just stay with your breath again and allow your intentions to remain positive. Start by breathing into this joy you are creating, and notice how you're shifting any anxious thoughts right now into peaceful feelings by following your breath. Any thoughts that previously held you back are becoming smaller and smaller, and watch how your negative thoughts diminish little by little. Allow yourself a few moments to simply be, and notice how things have changed since you began this meditation to how you're feeling right now. Return your focus to your breath for a few moments, and in your own time, whenever you're ready, slowly open your eyes and commend yourself for making these steps towards a better life. And slowly come back to the room again and open your eyes.
Now, hopefully you all panelists and attendees enjoy that. So we have another couple of minutes left there. I'm just going to check the Q&A section there again. And someone has put in the Q&A, animals are great for my anxiety. I know a lot of us on ARIES have our own pets as well. So that's brilliant. There's just a question here, where do you go to find a counsellor? So I think even online, even in the Midwest, I think there's anyone, like even trying to think of.
Yeah,
yeah.
Two of the governing bodies. So one would be IHIP, IAHIP, and I think that's .org. That's the Irish Association of Humanistic and Integrative Psychotherapists. And then there's IACP as well. I think it's iacp.ie or .com. So they would be, so therapists would need to accredit, and then they would need to register with either both or one of those. So they would be really, they've got a database of therapists in all different areas. Might be a good place to start.
Brilliant. Thanks a million, Noeleen. That's great, and great resource for people as well. So I think Eileen has just put in the chat there for everyone as well. So for people to see, that's great. So Mike, are you going to come in there?
I was just going to say as well, if somebody, you know, needs low-cost counselling as well in different areas as well, there's family resource centres, and they often have for people living in their own community low cost or free counselling service as well by people who are accredited or on their way to accreditation as part of their training. So again, ICAS would be another group here in Limerick as well, ICAJAS as well. So again, but as I always say, ask. So once you start asking, and if they say I can't help, but I'll show you where to go, and if you keep going, you'll eventually get it. Thanks, Cillian.
Brilliant. Thanks a million, Mike.
Pieta House as well offer counselling services as well.
Yeah, perfect.
And then online, I think it's BetterHelp, I think they're licensed, I think as well, just to check them and see, make sure.
And one that comes to my mind is My Mind as well. I think that's another one with counselling and psychotherapy as well. So there's lots out there as well. So hopefully you can use the resources there. So that's brilliant. So I have a final question for each of you, if that's okay, and then we'll wrap it up. Do you have any one piece of advice for anyone struggling right now with anxiety or anxious thoughts and how best to manage them? So we've had a great conversation on this already, but I think if anyone has any words of wisdom before we finish up, it'd be great. So Mags, I might come to yourself first. That's okay. Or yeah, Mike, I'll come to you then. That's okay.
Yeah, thanks, Cillian. I suppose to keep an eye on checking in with yourself. And if it's going over a certain period of time, and if you're getting anxious about small things, that maybe you need to get help or to talk to somebody about it, as you just mentioned, the resources there. But I suppose one of the major things for me is my concentration goes totally. I just can't concentrate on anything. My mind is won't stay with the one task. So for me, that's a real one to watch out for. But it's just to, I suppose, write it down, how you're feeling for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and I look at that and then see, do I need help in certain areas, or is this overwhelming me and is this taking over? I think that would be my piece of advice, is to journal it and write it down.
Great stuff, Mags. Thanks for sharing. That's really, really valuable. Mike, I know you wanted to come in there. Do you want to?
Yeah, and again, just a simple check-in is ask yourself, are my thoughts, feelings, or behaviors having a negative impact on me or someone who's close to me? And if they are, you know yourself best then. So figure out what your intervention is, because we've all thought about do this, do that, and try this and try that, and the different understanding. So because we're all individuals, we need to figure out what works for us. But I think that's the check-in piece, you know. So if it's having a negative impact on yourself or a loved one, someone in your life, change is required, action is required. That's it. Come up with your plan. What does it look like?
Brilliant, brilliant. Thanks, Mike. Noeleen, we might come to yourself.
So I know, so the question is, if somebody's really struggling at the moment, is this Cillian?
Yeah, exactly. Any words of wisdom and how best to manage?
So I know, I know just from, I know, I mean, from personal experience, I know when I've really been struggling, it can feel quite lonely and quite isolating. So I suppose I could say reach out for support. In terms of whatever that looks like, that could be the Samaritans, it could be GP, it could be a therapist. Also to go gentle. I suppose I really just want to say that for anybody who is experiencing or struggling with or whatever that looks like, just to go gentle. You know, I want to say it will pass, but I don't mean that patronizing. I mean that in terms of, I know what's helped me at times is to remind myself that it's not always going to be this way. And so that just that self-assurance or that reassuring piece of, okay, it's not always going to be this way, especially if it feels really awful. So to go gentle, and I really genuinely mean that as well. I think something that I realized a few years ago, and it's something I've held on to. So the stuff that I hold on to, I kind of trust in. It works for me. Is like, technically, I can only think of one thing at a time, and I found that really reassuring. So regardless of what the thoughts are like or floating around, it might feel as though I'm thinking of 10 things at once with the speed of them. I have some control over what that might be. So I've been working really hard at times, especially when the anxiety is quite high, of trying to hone in and focus on something, even if it is a little mantra like I am calm, or something like that. I have found that to be really, really helpful. So I don't know if that's of any use, but
Brilliant, Noeleen, great. And just those positive affirmations that can help in the moment as well. Really, really good. So thanks for sharing those great insights. Eileen, I would like to come to yourself, and then we'll go to Noelle.
Thanks, Cillian. I suppose for me, anxiety is really fear-based. I know we're talking about that and kind of lack of control. So something that I've done myself is to actually challenge myself to do something I'm a little bit afraid of. Because then if I've achieved that, I think, oh, actually, do you know what? These other things that I'm anxious about, I can do it too. So, you know, to set like a little challenge, you know, a few years ago, I suppose it was the first time, you know, I really tried to combat my anxiety and thought, you know, Mike mentioned the action piece, and, you know, I set my tasks of like going on holidays on my own and walking for a week on my own. And I thought once I could do that, actually, I can do anything. And that really has helped with my anxiety, that actually, if I can face being on my own, you know, walking, you don't know what's going to happen. So I suppose that's, I just say that, Cillian, anyone who's really struggling, there's probably something that you want to do, and maybe just set yourself a small challenge. And if you want to achieve that, it just really helps. And it's just, I suppose the why part is because that's helped me with my anxiety over the years. So thanks, Cillian.
That's brilliant, Eileen. And it reminds you of the book I think you mentioned to me before, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. It's a great book. So that could be something for people to delve into. So I'm not sure the author now. I can't think now. If you know, Eileen, I'm not sure. You're on mute there.
Oh, sorry. I'll put it in the chat, Cillian.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks a million. And Noelle, we'll come to yourself finally. Thanks a million.
Yeah, I suppose just, and something Noeleen said as well, I think first and foremost, be compassionate and kind to yourself, because this isn't your fault, you know, because we can just blame ourselves for acting the way we're acting, and, you know, it's something that's happening to us. So just to be kinder to yourself. And I suppose with that, if you can, try and bring yourself back to the present moment. Like, instead of thinking about what's going to happen and you don't have control over that, and then that just exacerbates everything. Think about what is happening now, and if there's something you can do about it now, and then recheck yourself in again later about that. I think that's a good part, is to check in again later. And I suppose it's rethinking your fears. And I've mentioned before, I do the 5-4-3-2-1 technique when I'm walking, but it's only lately I've heard of the 3-3-3 rule around anxiety. And that's to look around and name 3 things that you can see. Then look around and name 3 things that I can hear, and then move 3 parts of my body. And this can help to just center back your mind and focus on the here and now, and just try and bring you back to the present moment. So just in that moment, that technique can just help you to just come back to the moment. And just all you can do is focus on that one thing, that one thought, the here and now. So that, and just be kind to yourself around.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thanks. Well, great techniques there. And again, coming back to that compassion and kindness for ourselves as well. So really great stuff. So I'm just going to share the slides again, just the last few bits. So we have, I'm just going to share from here, sorry. We have our May timetable up online. So if you would like to attend any of our workshops over the month of May, we have a range of different topics on resilience, self-care, let's talk depression, managing well-being, and mental health recovery. So these can be booked on Eventbrite, eventbrite.ie, midwestseries.eventbrite.ie. So if you want to check them out, and they're 2 hours in duration, they're all online at the moment anyway. The next slide then is we have an in-person, face-to-face panel discussion in the Hunt Museum in Limerick on the 26th of May. So it's 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. It's on creativity and well-being. And if you would like to book, you have to go to the Hunt Museum website, but you'll get this when you have registered for this webinar. You'll get all this information in your learner pack by Friday. So if you'd like to book even in the meantime, the Hunt Museum website you have to go to, and it's part of the Limerick Lifelong Learning Festival as well. So that is another one. So that'll be in person, which would be great. And this is how to book onto our workshops as well, the Midwest Aries at eventbrite.ie website, and all our links to our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. All the webinars, the previous webinars, are up on the YouTube channel and on Spotify and Anchor as well as an MP3 file. So if you'd like to check any of them out, and this will be up by the end of the week, hopefully as well, when we get the recording. So, and at Midwest Aries is our handle for all the social media as well. So that is that. And then Noeleen, I know you have your own email address here. This is Claire Flynn's email address, and this is the details for Mental Health Ireland. So even if you want to put it in the chat, or even if you want to say it out there, if people want to contact you after, it'd be great, Noeleen.
Yeah, sure. So it's Noeleen, Noelen, at mentalhealthireland.ie. Can I also just mention there is, of course, this little guide, the anxiety booklet that we have for Mental Health Ireland. We're going to get a link to that and add that to the resource pack.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. So on Friday, I'll send out the learner pack. So you get the slides, you'll get all resources that we kind of talked about, and anything that was kind of mentioned throughout the workshop, links or whatever else, and the actual link to this recording as well. So it'll be great, and all the information. So Eileen has just put in the feedback form for this webinar. So we really appreciate if you take a couple of minutes to do the feedback form. It'd be great just to get some thoughts and opinions from yourselves who attended as well. So I'm just going to pass over if you want to say a quick goodbye, because I know we're over the time, but if you want to say a quick goodbye, Mike, and I will pass it to everyone then. And,
thanks, Cillian. Enjoyed the chat, and I hope the people who are attending the webinar got something out of it. And as I said, it's kind of stimulate the thought, figure stuff out. And again, just we can all come up with our own plan to manage our own anxiety. Brilliant. Thanks, Cillian.
Great. Noelle, I'll pass to you. Say goodbye.
Yeah, just thanks everyone, all the panelists, and thanks everyone for listening, and really enjoyed it. And thanks for that meditation. It really helped me today, Cillian, so thanks.
Okay, no bother, Noelle. Thanks a million. Mags, we might come to yourself to say goodbye.
Yeah, thanks, Cillian, and really enjoyed today's discussion. And yeah, the meditation, I could just stay another 10 minutes away with this. It was great. Thanks very much.
No worries. Thanks, Mags. Noeleen, we'll come to yourself.
my unmute button. Yes, and thank you so much for the invite to come on and to talk all things anxiety. And I hope, like for anybody who attended the webinar, it was a morsel of something. And to go gentle. Thank you, guys.
Great. Excuse me. Thanks, Noeleen, and thanks for taking part in the webinar. It's great to have you here from Mental Health Ireland as well, so much appreciated. And finally, Eileen.
Thanks, Cillian. Just thanks to everyone that was on today, and just to everybody watching. Don't forget to self-care and to look after yourselves. And enjoy the spring and the summer coming up. Thanks, Cillian.
Perfect. Thanks, Eileen. I will say goodbye to everyone. So thanks to all the panelists and all the attendees. Hope you enjoyed it. And we'll chat to you again soon. Thanks a lot.